City of Stevens Point Board of Water and Sewerage Commissioners meeting, recorded August 12, 2024.
Yes, it's time for us to begin. First item of roll call will be taken care of as it traditionally is. Next item is approval of last month's meeting minutes. Any corrections or changes suggested? If not, motion to approve is in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. On to the Water Department claims. Any questions?
I don't have any.
I have none.
All right, then let's look at the Sewage Department claims. Hello, Ray.
I don't have any on that one either.
Just a typo on 59202. I suspect that's the wastewater lab.
I'm struggling.
59.
Where is 202?
I know, I don't see 202.
Did I say 201?
Okay.
59201.
Superior clean new roof for wastewater. Yeah, water.
The water lab.
We started a new utility, we're gonna tell you about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, wastewater.
Any other questions on sewage? On to stormwater?
Not me.
None for me.
All right, and then finally fiber.
No.
There are no other questions. We need a motion to approve. What's that?
I have a question back on stormwater department.
Okay,
59183, there's a refund check for $4,508. What would we be refunding for that much money?
I'm guessing it was paid, this is Clem's Way, is this our stormwater
Yeah,
duplication? Is that what this one is?
Clem's Way.
What happened here, I think this is the orthomolecular. What happened is that a while back, they went through an addition, they added onto their building. They ended up with 2 addresses, but it's still one facility, or they went between them. We were billing stormwater for both addresses for 1 unit, so we had to refund some that we'd inadvertently billed twice.
Thank you. Makes
More or less, yeah.
okay, then a motion to approve all 4 sets of claims is in order.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next is our audit presentation by Jody from Baker Tilly. Welcome.
There you go. Thank you. Good. Can you see it okay from there? I think.
All right, well, thank you very much for having me here. We've completed the annual audit for 2023, and wanted to provide kind of some summary highlights. In most prior years, when we look at the audit process, our responsibility is really to understand your processes, your transactions, the accounting cycles, and what's in the financial statements, so that we can design our tests in order to obtain evidence to issue the audit opinion. All of the other information outside of the opinion in the financial statements comes from your records and your team, and setting up processes over that information is really management responsibility with your oversight. So our approach is to start by assessing what's changed from prior years, whether it be systems, new transactions, people, and then use that to inform our process of how we're going to identify risks and how do we want to gather the information for each type of transactions or balances. And that can be confirmation, sampling, tracing things to supporting documentation, doing analytic tests, various different things. Ultimately, we get through that, and the financial statements received what's called an unmodified or a clean opinion. So that's the highest level of assurance that we can give. These statements are a fair presentation at year-end of the position and the results of operations. When we talk about internal controls,
Is it working or no?
if I find the little arrow, it's working. Similar to prior years, we do report a weakness in internal controls and that we provide assistance at year-end with certain journal entries and putting the financial statements together. Very common in governmental entities that you don't have the size staff on hand to do those tasks once a year. So just something that we're required to communicate to you so you understand that. And then also, as part of the process, I said we're looking at accounting policies, the estimates that go into the financial statements, the methodologies and key inputs for those. If there were no concerns with those. If there were any difficulties, disagreements, anything like that I'm concerned about, we'd be bringing that to you, and it would also be discussed in the document that has the blue cover. This is the reporting and insights on the front, but there was no concerns at all to report.
Jody, on the last line on that one,
Yeah.
and on the bottom, is that supposed to say broad or ongoing concern?
So the going concern would be if there was a concern about the organization not being able to continue, we would have to report that to you. Again, definitely nothing that we noted here and very unusual in government, but
It's unusual in government?
to have that where they're running out of money
Oh,
completely.
okay.
Yeah,
I thought
to
this
have,
was
to have a
unusual.
going concern issue,
Okay.
but could be.
It may work a little better if you put it up on the edge of the table. It's just the Bluetooth that, right here.
All right.
There you go.
So the water utility and the key financial highlights. The rate of return is something we always look at, because that is how the Public Service Commission establishes the water rates. Your authorized rate of return is at 4.9%. Last year, you were a little bit above that, this year a little bit below. And that's normal to fluctuate a little bit as expenses may change year over year. You may have some non-routine items, as well as you're continuing to invest in your infrastructure, which is really your rate base, what the denominator in the calculation is. But as we can see in the graph here, operating revenues continue to have a good margin over the operating expenses and relatively consistent there. And then a few other metrics that we'll look at for each of the utilities. Unrestricted cash reserve, again, we like to see a bare minimum of 3 months worth on hand here. And so plus thinking then above and beyond that for capital. So, a strong cash reserve at the end of 2023 at just over 10 months worth, and that's been building for the last couple of years, which is good. Debt coverage, your existing revenue bonds carry a 1.1 coverage, meaning you need revenues to cover operating costs and 110% of debt service, and you're well above that. So you've got capacity there if you were to need to borrow for a water project. And then looking at that bottom bar, only about 20% of the water infrastructure, 21%, is financed with outstanding debt. So that's relatively low, and again, provides that capacity if we were to need to do something. So we have similar information for the sewer utility, because we don't have a rate of return because it's not regulated by the state. Here we do see that margin between revenues and expenses on the operations has closed a little bit year over year. It's fairly stable for the last 3. In 2023, it closed a little. So that's just something to monitor as you're doing your budgeting, to see where you're expecting your expenses to be and if the revenues are going to continue to maintain above that.
I got a real quick question on that one, just because I didn't think to ask sooner. Are both the revenue from, oh, never mind, no, okay, we're in this year already, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then unrestricted cash reserve, the wastewater utility is at about 3 months, so that minimum that we like to see. While there's been a little bit of ups and downs over the last 5 years, staying relatively stable. Debt coverage is at 1.4 times here The outstanding bonds require 1.25, difference being that some of them were issued in the market versus all through the state program. But still meeting that requirement easily. And then investment capital, a little bit more in debt, which is not, I guess, surprising given some of the recent projects in the wastewater utility. We've got significant projects with the treatment plant. That tends to be a large amount of debt up front, and then we see it start to decline over time. So I will say on that debt to equity, 50/50 is kind of the rule of thumb for utilities, to have 50% debt, 50% equity. If we see a lot more than 50% debt, we start asking, is there something unique about, say, having just built a brand new facility or something like that? If we see a very low amount of debt, then the question I always ask is, are we maintaining the assets? Are we making sure that we're doing the replacements as needed and not pushing that down the road to the detriment to the overall utility? And stormwater. So again, here, very consistent margins for the last 2 years, and I apologize here, when the dots get too close, sometimes my numbers run right into each other. And then looking at, and actually here I would, notice that the revenues increased while the expenses stayed very consistent year over year. Which helps with that building of cash reserves, so almost a year's worth of operations, cash reserves for the stormwater utility. Debt coverage, again, meeting that requirement consistently. And only about 31% of the infrastructure financed with outstanding debt. Again, all three in very strong positions. Do you want me to go through airport and transit? I happen to be bounded here.
Not transit here, you can,
Okay.
do you want her to do airport now or wait till airport?
If you don't have a pressing schedule, we wait.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yep, we can come back to that one. And transit is printed in here, you can see the way it flows. And then for the fiber utility. This one, the graph does look a little different because it's still such a new utility. In 2022, I think there was a pretty unique project that brought in some additional revenue, to go along with that project. So we do see though for 2023, that the revenues exceeded the expenses. Which allowed, again, this continual building of cash reserves over the last 3 years. And so while that probably looks like a lot on hand, for a new utility, that's really good to have because you're gonna have those unique items that come up in non-routine projects and costs that come up. And currently, the stormwater has no debt outstanding. Which, again, for a...
Fiber.
Fiber.
Yep.
So, but that's, again, the uniqueness of this operation, and able to get other sources of revenue to fund the upfront projects. With that, are there any questions?
Again, I'll repeat what I have for the last couple of years. It's really nice to have these sample pages with the comparisons on them instead of us having to wade through these entire reports. So, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Do we have to have a motion to approve this audit report? I would assume so.
If we could,
Yep. Motion's in order.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carried. All right. Now we're on to, water supply distribution. Eric?
Good afternoon. A little different format this month. The numbers didn't make it into the packet. We'll talk about that. The reason for that at number 8, we had some computer issues that are, at full-time operation. So I was able to get these put together, this morning for the meeting. So kind of a brief summary. Wet summer, so our pumpage is down compared to last year for July, which is a good thing. Just quickly, does anybody have any questions on the pumpage from last month at all?
Any other questions?
Other than that, 3 basic July, just moving along with meter exchanges and everything else, so.
Any clue why, pumpage is down that much?
Honestly, I think it's the rain. A lot of, if you notice, last year the pumpage was up compared to the year before.
Yeah.
And, it's just, there's not many people using irrigation. You don't need to water your garden like you did last year.
That makes sense.
The number of people I saw last year running sprinklers at noon, insane, so. It's a good thing, I guess.
I've only had to haul out my hoses twice this year.
Yeah,
Usually by now it'd be a dozen times, so.
okay, right. It's a big influx, so,
All right,
thanks.
you wanna keep going with
Sure.
the pump repair?
Yeah, number 6, costly month for us. We had, up in at the well house and at well 11, there's 3 pumps that pull out of the collector well. Pump number 1 started making some noises and giving us some troubles earlier this summer. We had Municipal Well, who's a contractor, come up, pull the equipment, take it back to their shop, and give us a quote on what the repairs are gonna be. So this is a summary of that. Just to come here and pull the equipment was the $8,700 at top. To come back with the repaired and maintained equipment is the $9,700. But all in all, just to bring the equipment back to site and pull it is $18,480. All of the repairs are summarized below, for $20,000. The thing about this project is because we're pumping well 11 24/7, we have to wait probably till fall to get this reinstalled. So when we have a down day, we have to take 2 safe back T samples in order to put this equipment back online. So we have a little bit of time in order to get this equipment back on site, but it's also gonna take them a month or 2 to rebuild this. So, great.
So we're only running 2 pumps as well, 11?
Usually we only run 1 anyways. I should say, when we're at peak demand, 2 might kick on, but it's usually just 1.
Okay, but we normally have 3 in there anyway.
Yeah, and we rotate them, keep the hours even. I guess I'm asking for approval on this quote to get the repairs.
I guess you have to give me a little bit more explanation about the last number, 39,105.
Sure.
I don't understand the difference between 1 and 2.
So 1 was for them to just come and pull the pump and the motor and take it back to their shop in Waupun. And then the other part of that, it was to bring that equipment back, as part 1. Part 2 is actually at their shop, replacing all the stuff that they found that is wrong or not within standard anymore.
Okay,
Total for pump part 2.
Yeah, so this is kinda pick it up, take it back.
Yeah.
This is bring it back to us and reinstall it.
okay.
And, but when they explained to us the things they found, and this is where we're dealing with some electrolysis on the shed. So we have maybe a grounding issue, maybe a corrosion issue out there,
Yeah,
where they gotta do some repairs that involve stuff that doesn't currently exist there.
I'm wondering about the grounding, whether coming from our own systems, our motors and stuff, or is it just the water generating
Well, all of it, I think,
static or?
I think that these things can go a number of ways. With the grounding ring that they're suggesting, it could just be that does it. It could be that we continue to find these issues and we kinda gotta hunt them out over the years. They didn't bring anything up related to like corrosion protection from outside source, so I don't think we need to get, like our towers have a special electronics on them to keep them, yeah. Anode, cathode, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know that there's a 100% certainty to this'll fix all your ills, no questions asked.
Is this unusual to have
Oh, I don't think so.
that amount of pitting and?
Yeah, well, the other thing that's kinda unique here is that there's not, because they're hanging free into a big pool of water versus being kind of a little more confined inside a pipe, a pipe this big with a pump this big, that could change that, how that works a little too, but I don't know.
so a motion to approve the, fees or the work for $39,105 is in order.
Second.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carried. Chris, on to sewage treatment.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. As Eric alluded to, format's a little different this month than what you normally would see in graphs and bar charts and things like that. Now we're looking at our, discharge monitoring report. It's got all of the relevant information on it. It was the only way I could get you the most important information in a timely fashion. So that's what we did. Plant did meet all of our permit limits for the month. The guys were busy putting some influence screens back together. We had ordered the parts back in, I believe, May. Parts showed up, they were able to pull everything apart, get it all put back in, and those were actually finished up last week. So those are both up and running again. And we are on week 12 of dryer operation since it's been repaired last, and we see no signs of leaking oil or anything like that, so I believe the repair was successful. So hopefully that will be the end of that for a fair amount of time.
Those influence screens, are those the ones that, take out, stuff that's too big
Any trash, any rags, anything that is not wastewater
and it ends up in,
ends up in a dumpster, yep.
Okay, good.
Okay. SCADA computer replacement.
Should I start?
Your name's on
Yeah.
it.
Part of the,
You did it?
yeah, I did everything. So the reason your reports look different this month has to do with this item. Our main SCADA server, in some capacity, part or whole, died. We have several of these computers, but the one that is kind of the brain of the whole thing, the center of it all, died. So we still have control of, all of our facilities, but what we're not doing is adding to the record, really. We're not sending all of the data points to the, what do we call it? Record keeper.
Hawk Wims.
I'm blanking at the moment, but we can't pull the data out that goes in right now because it's dead. So our integrator has provided us with a quote, which involves not just replacing that computer, but several others, because of the fact that putting a new one in would involve all new software, because the software that we have isn't the current software. And if you want them all to talk, they need to be all talking through the same software, same version, everything like that. So this scope involves software, hardware, so the new hardware for the computers and the software for the computers, the labor to put them in, and the labor to do all the other stuff associated with getting us up and running in a new environment. Now, what I will tell you, this is a big number. We were talking just this morning, and what I'd propose is that, we actually get approval for a number not to exceed, because there's cause to shop this around, of course, Now, we've done that at every big project, just about, when we go out for SCADA components of projects with our integrator that we've used for a long time and other integrators. So we've been knowing for a long time that we have been getting competitive pricing. But there's a little bit of change in the integration environment with us right now, and all said, I think that it's time for us to make sure we keep shopping that around. So we are also talking about, given how this happened, we're gonna get some feedback on the server environment. So these are kind of like standalone, more or less, desktop units, but they're really robust. We're looking at maybe converting that into what is more of an industrial grade, enterprise level server environment, where we can actually mirror these, so we don't have one go down and it dies, but rather one's dying and it's telling us it's dying, and we replace parts as we need to, like we do on the server end of stuff for the city's operation, for desktop, software, phone system, all that. Those are redundant across town, so that one dies, we're not out anything. In fact, the end user doesn't even know it. You just go about your day and replace some drives and stuff. So my thought process here is that we're probably good at this. I mean, we're gonna do some investigating into our actual needs for the servers. We might change gears there a little bit. But what I would say is that if we run into a situation where, because we've changed our thought process, we'd come back if obviously it was more. But this covers what, total of 7? I think it's 3 of the big units, and then more that are touchpad units out around the plant. So it's quite a bit of equipment. A lot of this is software licensing, which just wasn't in capital because we didn't know this one was gonna die. But it was on our radar for
Yeah.
probably next year, so we're preempting that a little bit.
So I started this conversation with our integrators early spring to get a quote, and I asked them, and they said, these computers last, we asked for replacement between 5 and 7 years, and these are 6 years old. So I said, before something happens, let's get a quote for 2025.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Here we are.
And the quote showed up and it broke.
Yeah.
It just seems like you could go and buy a Dell desktop computer for $1,000.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't know I know a server costs money,
yeah.
but this just seems crazy to me.
Like I said, a lot of it's the software. So there's a number of softwares we run.
Yeah,
I wonder did they still call it that?
Yep,
or-
Wonderware. It's a lot of licensing costs.
Yeah.
yeah,
Inside the program, there's 3 other programs that are running that allow us to track a lot of our, operation and maintenance, things like that, you know,
right.
produce, work orders, that kind of stuff all goes into this. So it's all the licensing to go with that is how it was explained to me.
I think at least for me, I think it'd be helpful to see it more itemized. Because I'm just having a hard time, like, does it cost $100,000?
It would be helpful for everyone to see that.
Yes,
And
We all are on the same page.
the reason,
Yeah.
the reason that we don't see that and they don't just willingly put it up there first time is because they know that this is gonna be on a screen at a public commission meeting at some point for approval. And at some point, the software cost is out there and the labor cost is out there and, you know, they're just trying to stay competitive. But, we've discussed it. We don't have exact breakdowns, but that right now, we can get them. But that's why, at the end of the day, if we go to a competing integrator, the number that's gonna make the most difference to us is this one, right? Because they're gonna have to get the same licensing. They're gonna have to
Right.
put,
Yeah,
yeah, so, but we can certainly get a good breakdown of that, when we're shopping it around too. So we'll have better numbers. Nonetheless, we're sitting kind of spinning wheels right now on data. We're not collecting data, we're not writing data. So I also we've been told some of this stuff is taking months and months and months to get. And so like to pull the trigger relatively quick, but we're gonna do that in a responsible manner here and make sure we have some comparable information on hand.
So is this proposal essentially, is that to simply replace what we've got?
Well, the functionality, sure, but this is basically from where we are, turnkey, new. So, new hardware, which is the servers and the other larger computer units that are like at well 11 in the biosolids building on the 2nd floor of the service building. It's the, software that goes on there, and then less hardware, but more software and licensing on the HMI units, the touch units are out and around the plant, and at 11 and stuff like that, so it's all of it.
So, am I understanding that you want a motion to, not to exceed 184,404, but you're gonna bring back additional specifics regarding this as you do additional research?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is through seeking out that info, make sure that we know what we're dealing with them and other parties, have the approval to move on it if it's at or below this, and then we can, obviously, we'd come back if we thought more was needed, but to be able to spell that out a little more, maybe at next meeting as far as what we're underway with, but I don't wanna wait a month to get some stuff started, because that's just, if it's a few months out, I don't know. I have no idea how long this is gonna take, but, Time's kinda ticking, you know?
So, they're good for 6 years, like you mentioned.
Mhm.
Are we looking at $30,000 a year
Well,
normally, or is that?
yeah, see, actually, I think that jump in here if I'm off, but I think that we haven't really hit this at your software and your hardware's all needed right now. I think we've done a little bit of, first it's this, then it's this, then it's this, then it's this. I don't know that we've kinda forklift the whole system out before. I mean,
It's also a lot larger system than it was previous.
yeah,
You know, well 11 was there, but not at the level it is. You know, the solids building added a lot to it. So I think there's a lot of stuff in there,
yeah.
you know, that maybe wasn't there prior to.
Yeah, and to that end, I don't know how we'd split this up yet, if it's just which units are at which facilities, but a lot of the software need and the I mean, it involves water and wastewater, so this isn't all one fund.
Do the units need to be at separate facilities, or you save money by having bigger
Yeah, well,
component at one building?
yeah, there is some benefit in the backup, for sure, because when we're out at 11, we can see 11 and everything else. When you're at wastewater, you can see wastewater and everything else. And there have been times when, you know, you're in a power outage situation or something like that, where it's really nice that the facility you have up and running has a SCADA computer there, so you can see it all. Otherwise, you'd be doing a lot of really manual work.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see a lot of backup hardware drives, at the individual units and that, and then 8 terabytes at the server. How much of that is captured? Is that a year or 6 months? Is it just
No.
last in, first out, or the other way around?
I don't know that we've run into, part of what we're doing, actually tomorrow, Chris is gonna hand over the computer to Electronics that died to see if they can capture anything off of it, but it stores a ton of backwards data. I don't actually know if they start overwriting the oldest stuff if they run out of room, but all of these have a lot of built-in, capacity for adding drives. So I suspect that if we got to 3 years and we were full, we'd be talking about it like, do we need more than that, or are we good? And if we needed more, we'd add a drive, not this kind of expense. But I can say we've always kinda had what we needed. It's never really been problematic with not having old data, but to that point, the amount of, I think we just call them points that we monitor between biosolids now and well 11, I mean, there's thousands, right? So, I mean, they're all shooting data out continuously, going somewhere, so that we can go back and look at trending, so that we can see live trending.
Yeah, it just struck me, you know, 'cause I got a terabyte
Yeah.
drive, like, no more than a phone size, and, you
Yeah,
know,
yep.
is that enough for, as complex of a system?
Right, yeah, well, I mean, so the size is one thing, but the data points themselves are very small bits of data, right? There's a ton of it, but they're all very small. So we've done, yeah, I imagine that this is, a little more than we have now, and I can tell you that what we have now has suited our needs pretty well, so.
We've got SCADA controls on all of our lift stations too, right?
Mhm.
That all comes through this system.
Mhm. And one storm lift station, and all the wells, and the 2 water treatment plants.
Okay.
Well, 4 could be better, and it will be.
It will,
The 12.
standalone. but
Well, it
well
was
12 will be-
standalone.
Will be added onto this.
Yep.
So a motion to not exceed 184,404 is in order.
I would support that motion.
I'll second.
Further questions? All those in favor signify by the sign of aye. Pose same sign, motion carried. I'll just put a little aside, just don't have to go in the minutes, but I know how often we have to replace our computers at our one office bank and what it costs. So I'm not alarmed by the cost of this at all.
Yeah, it's kind of a shock when you're not planning it, but had this been a line on the capital, it'd have
Yep.
been a lot more normal.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
I was very alarmed.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I was driving when Eric told me, managed to stay on the road. Yeah.
On to the architectural services for an addition.
Yeah, so, this is probably new conversation. This facility and our staff as a whole, we're a little beyond capacity right now. If and when we hire, our vacant position GIS, we're a little bit beyond busting at the seams. We've converted a 4-person office up here to 5. There was nobody working in the back room, you know, when I started here, and now it's 4 or 5, and we can fit 4, but if we have our intern going, it's 5, and we can accommodate that. But there's a few things going on that make us look at the fact that more is needed. One, when we're looking right now, so you know, at our GIS tech position, being more of a GIS analyst, and that is a slight increase in responsibility. We're doing that in concert with the city, because they have a GIS tech, and the two, there needs to be a first among peers there, and they also would be more valuable to both of us if they were working together. And so it's kind of like a where do you put them? And even though we're a little tight, it's still better accommodations here than at City Hall or something. They're beyond. They're sitting on laps over there, it seems like sometimes. But so that's one. As we grow in our crew size over the years, and believe me, I'm not asking for a bunch of people. It's just that we got here by planning more space than we needed back in '94, right? And so we've gotten 30 years out of that. So we got to look ahead to the next and kind of try to figure out what we're going to need there. As we add people across the street, we're probably going to chew up the spots where our foremen sit. We have got a little room over there. That might relocate them to the office space where Shane is, and that puts Shane here, or maybe Shane's here if there's an office available, which there isn't now. He's one of the superintendents, so it would make sense. So anyway, this scope is split up to kind of delve into options and needs first. Put this out to Somerville because some of our last efforts have involved interviewing and deciding and kind of going through a scoring mechanism with architects. And this is one we have not yet worked with that we've wanted to for a while. And I will say that's from a city perspective as a whole, not necessarily just this department. And the size and the scope of the work fits them really well. So this is just something I got back from them right now. So you'll see this phase 1 is really about space programming, them visiting, meetings with us, preliminary layouts, and then talking about options, right? And so there's some money that's going to be put into that just to say, how does this look to you guys before we get into any phase 2 tasks. And that's why, right now, it's spelled out like this. Phase 1, basically, what do you guys need? And then we'll show it to you on paper, $8,600. And then phase 2 has a schedule based on construction costs. And this actually makes me very happy. I always think we're getting a great deal if we're at or below 8% of their fees versus construction fees. And we rarely get there, by the way. I mean, we've been 9 to 13 a lot of times. So this is actually, I think, a very well put together proposal if we even get to phase 2. Because obviously what we do is work with them, work out some details, bring back some thoughts, and then budgetary estimates and go from there. So we don't have any intent to go beyond phase 1 without further action, but we would like to start the planning process to say how do we do this in a well thought out way to accommodate the future.
So this building was built in 1994, is that what I understand?
I think it's 94. Is that when the plan upgrade was?
92, yeah,
Right
somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there, early mid-90s. This was done at the same time because the lab for wastewater moved into that building, and that building used to be the administration building for the water wastewater utilities. It's in the thing in the lobby. Look at
I read it.
Would we
Yeah.
be simply making a cubic foot addition,
Yeah,
we'd still have our basic water and sewer services and enough electrical. We wouldn't need to plan for all of that stuff. We're just putting some space in for people.
yeah, so basically this is it right here from a very, like, 3 bullet points isn't many, right? We wanna add space for 5 people because we can identify 1 or 2 spaces right now that are needed. That would give us a few more to grow into. A little more, conference room area. We end up using this building a lot for, meetings throughout the week with engineering, with just project-related stuff and everything. So a little bit of collaboration space in the back of the building as it grows would be good, because we can even run into conflicts with scheduling between the two. Another set of restrooms and wellness room. I think this comes down to kind of a privacy room. I think buildings are required also to accommodate like breastfeeding rooms, and I don't think we have anything that fits that bill right now. I think, and then provide for future growth. That's just a few extra spaces and some kind of undeveloped space that can be used for filing now and could be a cubicle later type thing. So that's the really rough.
Is there, renovation? You have the.
Yeah.
moving
Yes.
partitions around, or?
They're looking at our current, footprint, to see how we could better use that if it's part of the overall, if there's a space here that makes sense to change and account for it back in the addition space. And then also things like, we're gonna probably evaluate windows. You can talk through them. They're like aluminum on aluminum. There's not much insulation there. They're really inefficient. And actually, sometimes you have to go to the outside to push it closed while somebody cranks it from this side. So, yeah, there's a little bit of,
Okay.
yeah, that's next, right? Yeah.
Minor thing, I see restrooms there, is that including public restrooms?
So if we were to do that, I think we've got the signs that say no public
I
restrooms.
always find that humorous.
It's well, it is humorous. The only reason we did it is because there were a couple of, individuals stealing all our paper. So we're not required. We've got a front counter here that's behind a locked door. So we did that for that reason.
Tomorrow you got election here.
Yeah.
All day.
Right.
So
Yep.
there's public in and out.
And the doors are open, so they're obviously gonna use them if they find them. It's just, those are our public restrooms if we have new restrooms, because they'll be back more in the staff area. So those accommodate that just fine. We can sacrifice some paper products once in a while. Yeah.
The facility.
Yeah, right, yeah. Put a stall door on
So
there.
we need to spend $8,600 to get some more specific information and suggestions on which direction we should go. Is there a motion in order?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. All same sign. Motion carried. Change, construction, and maintenance.
Absolutely. Really, everything construction-wise is business as usual. A couple of highlights to point out, though. We've got, as you know, 4 ongoing, construction jobs that are bid out. Our televising crew has been busy keeping up with, televising all of the new infrastructure being put in on all 4 jobs. So they're keeping up with that, as well as, the normal cut jet flush program in between there. We have one of our internal construction crews working on installing new storm sewer on Industrial Park Drive, to hopefully solve some of the flooding issue that happens up by like Fire Station 2. So we're connecting and, putting in new storm sewer through there. They're about halfway through that project.
That discharge into your collection ponds down the,
It does, yeah, yep.
not adding more capacity to make.
Correct, basically just kind of connecting some infrastructure that's already in place, so it can, work better. One final highlight is that we're working on, planning some fiber optic, extensions that would, connect, the fiber optic network to some of the city parks, and, some of the new projects have some extensions going on for that too, so that's in the works as well.
Any other questions?
I've got a quick question on fiber. I saw somewhere in the minutes and I can't find it. Said something about dark fiber. I don't know what dark fiber is.
Basically, before it's plugged in anywhere, and it's kind of used in a way, we don't provide, anything on the fiber. So we don't sell internet, we don't sell cable or phone. What we sell is, what we rent is dark fiber, meaning here's one end of your fiber, plug it in. Here's the other end, plug it in. So it goes into your switches, you provide the content over it, saying, if you have a school over there and a school over there and you need to connect them so you can share resources, like all your servers are here, so obviously they need to get to them. So you have a switch that accommodates that traffic, so you don't have to have multiple server farms, multiple internet service providers, or multiple phone systems. You can have it all at one and essentially act as though you're in the same building by way of using fiber to get across town.
Okay.
So the dark fiber is what we provide. They light it up with their switches.
Gotcha, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was, something like the deep web or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
How you get there, dark fiber.
Yeah.
Joel, any director's report?
Just one item, late in the week, we got the sanitary survey back from the DNR last week for the water system. Nothing in the way of deficiencies found, so nothing urgent, but we will get you a copy of that for next month's commission. That's all.
Good. Motion to adjourn is in order.
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign, motion carries. On to...
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.